Hey everybody, it is Jordy from Seven Eagle Group. You know, there are few people in the military community who when I come across them, man, I am just like, man, this guy is awesome. He just will do anything for this community. And I said there are a few people. That's not true. There are a lot of people, but this is a guy who's made a big impression on me. I think we met, I don't know what it's been, like maybe 7 years ago, sort of when I was just starting out. He was one of the first guys I came across. But let me tell you about today's guest. Just an incredibly impressive guy, a real hard charger who has achieved a lot of success in his career once he left the Navy. Served 9 years as a career counselor and a diver on a nuclear sub, the USS Georgia. And I don't know if I got this timeline right. You're going to correct me, but you went to college. You was a star pitcher, baseball pitcher at Florida Southern College in Furman.
Outfielder, DH, infield. Yeah, wherever they needed me, I could hit, Jordy. So
you still got it? Can you still?
I still beat the little brothers in the home run derby. I don't know if I still got it, but we can still hit a ball a long way.
So, big college athlete, went on, launched his civilian career, volunteer with the Honor Foundation, which is a great organization. And right now, he's living down in Miami, working a few different gigs. He's big into real estate. He works with a company called EXP Realty, which is a monster company. And then he also is at Grant Cardone's enterprise as a sales trainer, sales coach. And sure. Nick Mershon. Thank you, buddy.
And thank you, Jordy. That was impressive. No, Jordy, when you said, "Hey, do you want to do this again?" I was pumped, and I actually went back and watched that first one when we were talking about. I was like, "Wow, like this is." No, it was good because it's fun to see where I was then versus where we're at 5 years, 6 years down the road. So no, thank you so much for having me, man.
Awesome.
Glad to chop it up.
I appreciate that, man. That's what I love about you. I said, hey, Nick, you mind coming on and sharing some of your advice and guidance and story? And you 3 minutes later said, absolutely. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. So why don't we start? Let's start in with your journey. Like, where'd you grow up? Sure. What made you decide to head down the Navy path? And what was that experience like for you?
Sure, absolutely. So grew up in a baseball family. I've got two little brothers that are playing. One's at College of Charleston, one's at Mississippi State right now. So dad played ball for the Reds for a year before they figured out that, hey, this isn't a thing for him, but it's been in our blood forever. So grew up on the ball field, and then the transition to the military for me was really a necessary thing, right? I had kid one on the way, had to figure out what I need to do with my life. And the Air Force said, hey, Nick, you can't see, so you can't do a whole lot here. So I took I just walked out of the recruiting station, took my whole packet into the Navy office, like, hey, what can I do here? And then initially thought I wanted to be a nuke. I ended up being nuke waste, got away from college to try and get away from school. In my first year and a half, almost 2 years in the Navy was all schooling. Right. So ended up on the Georgia, and the rest has been amazing since then. But that is me to the Navy. But I joined the Navy because it was a need, and I didn't know what the hell I want to do with my life.
But looking back now, are you happy you joined? How did that help you as you launched your civilian career? You got out. How were some of those lessons, those skill sets that you learned in the Navy? How did that make you who you are today?
For sure, right? So I'm going to attribute all that to the nuclear power program and all of the intangibles that you get going to nuke school. Whether you make it all the way through or you're there for 2 months, they drill into you. You're going to show up. You're going to look the part. You're going to be on time. You're going to try your hardest with everything you do. And I think that was a huge credit to the longevity that I had in the Navy, just because that foundation was show up on time, look the part, do your best inside of everything you do, right? Yeah. But if you just do that outside of the service, you're gonna be light years ahead of some of your civilian counterparts that have never been through the adversity and haven't had that level of discipline where, hey, here's what I do. I show up, and when I say I'm going to be there at 8:30, I'm going to be there at 8:30, or I'm going to be there at 8:15.
Yeah. That's great. What was your transition like when you were leaving? And was it tough? Was it easy?
Oh, yeah.
Did people help you? What was that?
No. It was I was reaching out to a bunch of people. It was still rough, even as a career counselor. I was unemployed for almost 3 months.
Wow.
So when I finally found my first job outside of the Navy, right? Shout out to a couple other recruiting firms, right? That helped me get there. But you knew that I was going through you. I had 3 recruiting firms working for me. Every single one of them knew that I was working with somebody else, right? And I was like, hey guys, I've got an army of kids. I just need a job, right? It taught me a bunch on just resiliency again, because like it got bad there for a little bit, and we're like, hey, how are we doing this next week? How are we doing this next month? But
Yeah.
found it so not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But my advice to anybody getting out, whether you're going to stay in for 20 years or you're going to be in for 2 weeks, is to start early. And especially with all the skill bridge opportunity out there now, figure out what you don't want to do. Figure out what you don't want to do. Even if you go to a skill bridge and you don't end up taking it, like figure out what you don't want to do. And the cups of coffee through the Honor Foundation or any of your other things that are out there that can help you, take advantage of all of those and reach up to people that are 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years
Yeah.
out, that are where you want to be. Right? You slide into anybody's DMs or you hit somebody up on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm getting out in 6 months or I'm getting out in 6 years. What's your day-to-day like? Almost every veteran that I've reached out to ask that question has at least given me a response or said, hey man, here's what my day-to-day is, or hey, let's hop on a call.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anybody here, if you don't have a clue what you want to do when you get out, shoot me a message and we'll get it handled.
That's all. So personally, was your strategy, hey, I'm going to reach out to a lot of other veterans or specifically Navy veterans who are a few years ahead of me, just asking for guidance, advice? Did you reach out to civilians too? What was that like?
Yeah. So I went back to like my high school basketball coach, high school baseball coaches. My dad was connected with people, right? So anybody that I knew in my life that was connected to somebody that had been doing something for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I just wanted to know what your day to day was like. Is this something that would make sense to me? And here are my 3 or 4 criteria that I'm looking for in my job day to day.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I would not just reach out to veterans. Right. I would reach out to people that have no idea what the military is and ask them what their day to day is too. Right. Because we get a skewed view of reality when, hey, that veteran went out there and they did that and they're successful. Right. Your
Yeah.
journey is still going to be your journey, but I want everybody's input, not everybody's, but I want input not just from the military. I want input from civilians as well on where you think I fit and what that day to day looks like.
Yeah, I like that. And not being afraid to hear that advice. Sometimes it's not always what you want, but
No,
let them talk truth with you. That's great.
absolutely right.
What
And get your resume. Sorry, one more. Get your resume in front of vets and get your resume in front of other people that aren't veterans.
Yeah,
Because the best response I ever got was from Matt Rosebaugh when I sent him my resume, and he's like, "Nicky, you ready?" I was like, "Matt, I grew up on a ball field and I was in the Navy for 9 years. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings." He's like, "Nick, this is trash." So cool, man. Chop it up. What do I need? Right. So find people that'll have that conversation with you, and don't get offended or don't get hurt when they say, "Hey, here are the 3 or 4 places you can improve."
Yeah, that's great. And anyone listening, if you have questions for Nick, throw them in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. So, talk a little bit about what you're up to now, and how you ended up on this path that you're on. Because I know
Sure.
you're doing a lot in real estate, a lot in sales, and it's really exciting. What you're
Absolutely.
doing.
Absolutely. So when I learned way more outside of the Navy than I have about transition programs while I was in, even as a career counselor. Right. So I didn't know that Tuck Next Step existed. I didn't know Stanford Ignite existed. There's one at Harvard. There's a couple at Columbia too. Right. So there are a bunch of 2-week, 6-week, 2-month interactive business programs that everybody should be a part of. Right. So my trajectory changed when I got into Tuck Next Step and just got in front of a bunch of other people that were amazing individuals in September of 2019. Right. So thank you, Margot, and everybody that's up there at Tuck still for just the feedback on my applications. Right. Because I went 1 for 3 there. I went 0 for 2 on my first 2. And I was like, I played ball. I was a vet. I was like, what am I doing wrong? But the feedback she gave me was like, hey, Nick, here are the 2 or 3 ways you need to tailor this, because you keep saying this, and this is our red flag. I was like, if I would have known that after application 1, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Right. So my that was the start of the think bigger, right? So like once you get out and you're like, hey, I've got that first one, or hey, I'm comfy, or we're doing whatever the thing is, we get out, like your transition doesn't stop. Your transition doesn't stop. What you're doing year one out, and this is where a bunch of people go wrong. What you're doing year one out isn't what you're going to be doing for the next 20 years for the majority of you, right? So figure out what next steps are. But for me, going there and being around a group of high achievers was the start of the path to, hey, where are we going? Right. I also oopsed my way into real estate. Thank you, VA loan. We bought a short sale early. Right. We lived in it for a couple of years and then put a renter in it, made a bunch of money off of it. And then I saw what I paid my realtor and I was like, I can do that. Right. That doesn't mean it's an easy job, but if you can do paperwork and you can talk to people, you can be in sales. Right. So my advice to any veteran or anybody just looking to find a new job or find the next thing right now would be to think way bigger than what you think is possible right now.
Yeah.
Jordy, I don't know if that helped with the path of or answered the question. But
talk about Nick, because so much of what you do every day is sales yourself, is coaching other people how to sell. You do that with a lot of corporations who hire you to come in there and teach their sales team. Talk about how that relates to the transitioning service member, the veteran going for their job. They're really selling themselves to hiring managers, to CEOs. Talk about some of the suggestions, the tips that you might have for them that they can easily incorporate.
Right, for sure. And the first thing to do is, once again, like ask. Just ask. In the service, like in the submarine force, if something was wrong, like we were encouraged to raise our hand and ask what the problem was. Right. But thing one, figure out what you want, go ask for it. Right. Second one is the attitude between your ears. Right. In the service, you did something that was not so fun, that you got through individually, or that the whole crew got through, or that your unit got through. Right. So keep that with you day to day. That's one of the biggest things that I talk to clients about is, hey, we can go through all sorts of sales training. We can go through every lesson in the world. We can watch everything on YouTube. And if we don't apply anything, we're useless. I don't think we have a knowledge problem anymore. I think we have an application problem. Right. So, but if you don't think you can do it first, then we're going to get out there and you're never going to do it. Right. I wouldn't have made it through. Like, I went to dive school as somebody who couldn't float, everybody. So if I can make it through those 5 weeks, you can do whatever you want to do. Right. But figure out who the people you need to be around are, and then believe you can go do it. And then just, hey, what are the next steps to do it as you backtrack that goal?
Yeah. What are some quick and easy things people could take away from this to have to sell their military experience basically to a civilian, but to feel confident doing it, no matter what they did in service, to know that experience, has some sizzle. People want to hear about that. And that's probably one of the best things about the candidate.
Absolutely. Right. So I want you to tell the story that resonates the most with you. And then I want you to figure out how that applies to the job you're applying for, everybody. Right. So we want the stories that we can tell, but how does it apply to the job? And then what is the company that you're applying to benefiting from that? Because we can tell the stories all day long. But if like Jordy, if I was going to come work for 7 Eagle, right, I'm not gonna tell Jordy a story and then be like, yeah, man, and then the unit crushed it. Right. No, Jordy, I was a career counselor. We 125 sailors, did a bunch of paperwork, right? And here were the 4 or 5 outcomes when I was leading this team that led to their success and my success. Right. That's what I'm selling. So like, sell the outcome. Don't talk about what you did. How does it apply to what that job you're applying to, or how would it resonate with whoever you're speaking with?
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the philosophy that you guys have at Grant Cardone, this 10X philosophy, to 10X everything, to just go for it? Can you intro that?
Absolutely. Right. So my Grant journey started in 2019. He was giving away hero tickets for GrowthCon. Right. It was down here in Miami. We were living in Ohio at the time, Jordy. I think this was shortly after we did our interview. Right. All he said was, if you get here, you can get in. I was like, awesome, let's go. Right. The most money I'd ever made in my lifetime was $82,000 when I went to that event. Over the course of the next 13 months, just applying the 10X rule and thinking bigger, I cleared $246,000
Good for
in
you.
13 months.
Wow.
Right. So it is the think bigger. It's the add a zero. It's the shorten the timeline that we've all done before. Right. It's just delivered a little differently.
Yeah.
Right. So the ask and the dream bigger is it. Right. So if you think you've made a bunch of money, put a zero on it and ask yourself, how can I do this?
Yeah.
Versus sitting there and be like, hey man, I'm okay with the status quo.
Right. We put these walls up, these boundaries, saying, "Wait, I only have I have to make 55,000 my first year because that's what the market pays or whatever."
Right.
But,
Right. Exactly. And that's also the other side of that is like you don't have to go work for somebody. Everybody.
Yeah.
You don't have to go work for somebody. A few vets go the entrepreneur route, and a bunch of them are super successful, but a bunch of us are also used to, hey, 1st and 15th, I got to get paid. I got to get paid. I got to get paid. Right. So if you have a skill set or you know that there's a need out there in the world, we got a whole bunch of vets in my network and Jordy's network that are running their own businesses. Just reach, we'll get you in touch, or we'll at least give you a blueprint of how they did what they did. But all those stories are out there too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't just limit yourself to, I have to go work for somebody on the W-2 side. Right.
And I
But
like too what
bigger.
you're doing. You're doubling up a little bit, right? You're doing
Absolutely.
something on the side. You're hedging your bets.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
great.
Right. And that's where if you only have one source of income, right, you're going to be hurting. But your average millionaire has 8 sources of income. They also fail 17 times before something sticks, everybody. And bankruptcy is like, I think 3.5 or 3.5 of your average. Like, so high risk, high reward. You've done something high risk, high reward in the service. All we're asking you to do is apply that to whatever that next thing is in your life.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. That's great advice. I really like that because I feel people just they don't dream big enough, and you got one shot at this life. Go for it. You
Correct.
deserve something great.
Last I checked, we haven't figured out that live forever thing. So
right.
If we do, cool. But
coming soon.
Exactly.
I invited our UX developer from 7 Eagle to come on with me. This is Brianna Soto. Jethro's going to let her in the room. She is a SkillBridge, doing her SkillBridge internship with us here at 7 Eagle. And Brianna's going to help me ask some questions to Nick of what she would like to know. So why don't you start out, Brianna, and then I'll mix in some from our viewers after you go ahead.
So first of all, I absolutely love your personality.
Me or Nick? Both,
Both of y'all.
Okay.
But I did want to ask, whenever you find people to kind of add to your network, what kind of qualities do you look for in people like that would help you then be successful?
Brianna, do you play video games? You're a developer, right? So have you played video games before?
Yes.
Okay, so main characters, Brianna. I'm looking for main characters. I'm not looking for NPCs. I'm looking for, and I knew you'd get that, right? So I want people in my life from every different spectrum, every different angle, because I don't want a bunch of Nicks running with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I want a bunch of people that have my blind spots out, that see the world from a different perspective, and that have accomplished something, or that I know are on a trajectory to accomplish something. Right. And a bunch of the great people I've met in my life have been through social media, because I can see almost everything about you. I can see what you're posting. I can see what resonates, what doesn't resonate. More importantly, I can see how you handle adversity, or I can see how you handle negative comments and how that happens. Right. So do I have a plan when I go add somebody to the Nick circle? No, but I'll find them. Right. And it's really a find your people mentality of who else is out there? What are they saying? What is the message? And how can that help me? And more importantly, how can that help everybody with whatever that message is that they're putting out there?
Okay.
Does that help? Does that answer your question?
That makes sense. No, that definitely makes sense.
Okay. But yeah, main characters.
I like that. That's a good way to think about it. All right, I'm going to ask one from Guy Jacks. Wait, let me see if I can get that to show. Oh, good. I think Jethro's doing it. Maybe not. All right, here it is. So, can you share a project you worked on you're proud of? What made it successful? Where did you see blockchain going in the future? Because that's an interest of yours. I saw that. So,
It is indeed. Share a project that I worked on that I'm particularly proud of and what made it successful. So my first job outside of the Navy, we didn't have the ability to take our floor workers and turn them into managers, right? That blueprint didn't exist. We also didn't have levels of like the military has, hey, here's your next rank, here's your next rank, and here's how you can promote, right? So created that inside of a company where it didn't exist. And I'm pretty sure three of them, I know at least two of them, but three of them that were floor workers are now still there as managers inside of that company, right? So you can go check out what that company is, right? But that was personally, that's one of my biggest projects in the civilian world that I worked on, where it was fruits of labor and people are still thriving from it. And then where do I see blockchain going in the future? How can veterans get positioned for it? Okay, so I'm going to answer the second half of that question first. How can veterans get positioned for it? There's Blockchain Training Alliance is a place, is a thing online where you can go learn about blockchain for business, right? I leveraged all of my time at Accenture and everything they had to offer on the blockchain side to just knowledge, right? Find people that are doing cool stuff with blockchain. How can you help them? And then just figure out what else they are doing, right? Because right now it's, oh, hey, there's a bunch of cryptocurrency out there. There were these NFT things that were a rage, right? But blockchain's going to change the real estate game. Eventually, if regulators allow it, blockchain is going to change the title game, because I'm not going to need proof of title. It's just going to be all on the chain. I can see it every step of the way. Right. So those are the two biggest impacts. Are there going to be other places? Absolutely. It's already in some grocery stores where I know exactly where my coffee beans or my lettuce was sourced from, and you see every step of the way. But I think blockchain in 2023 is the internet in 1990, where everyone's like, this is a thing. Right. In 2035, we're all operating on something that has a blockchain entity inside of it.
Yeah.
So, Guy, I hope that, Guy, if you have any other questions on the blockchain world, I could talk that for hours if you let me.
All right. So next, David Cole, what inspired you to pursue real estate? And was there a moment that triggered that?
There was. So, David, I was in Kings Bay, where the Georgia is, right here, exit 1 on 95 on the Georgia-Florida line. And we're just driving around. I was sick of renting, right? So we were in housing, and then we were in rental outside of housing. We drove by a short sale, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I know that this is really cheap and it's close. Hey, can we buy this? Yes, we get approved. Good to go. And then I saw, hey, we're moving, right? So Navy career ended. We're moving to Ohio. Hey, I don't have a whole bunch of money to put down. How can I do this? You can get a second-tier VA loan. They're like, you just need to have somebody renting your house you're in now. I was like, oh, okay. So got somebody to rent that. And then I was like, wait a minute, this scales. This scales everywhere, right? So as long as you refinance out of that first home, you can have 2 VA loans, assuming you don't hit that peak, because there's a cap. But you can have two VA loans at any time if you do it correctly. And once I saw that, I was like, cool. Every home that we live in, we are now going to rent, and that's not the way to do it to maximize it, right? You can get a multifamily property, 4 units or less, live in one, and rent the other 3 out with a VA loan because it's still a primary residence. That's a whole nother ball of wax too. But that was where I said, hey, this scales. We made a bunch of money when we sold the house in Georgia. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to get into a bunch of short sales, but I can build equity, live in the house, and then move out, right? We call it house hacking. So, David, if you have any other questions on the real estate world, let me know. But people are always going to buy and sell homes, and there's usually a middleman in 85 to 90% of transactions. I volunteer as tribute to be that middleman.
Grant's advice is contrary to what everyone grows up with, which is you made it when you bought your first home or something. But he's like, don't you dare buy a home. You want to rent, right?
Correct. Because the product is for the bank.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, I don't know if everybody here if you own a home, go back to your amortization schedule and just look at what that bottom line number is after 30 years or 15 years.
Grow up.
And you're going to be, you've got a bunch of equity and the bank's made at least double.
at least.
So yes, that is the mentality there. Brianna, what
Yeah.
else? Brianna,
Go ahead,
what are the
Brianna.
questions? What are the
Hit him
questions you
another
have?
one.
So recently I've heard, like on other social media websites, about drop shipping. I was
Yeah.
wondering what your take on it is, because I'm not sure if that's a really good idea or not.
Okay, all good. On the okay, so there are tons of different ways to make money online, right?
Mhm.
Drop shipping is one, affiliate marketing is one, just having an ebook that people download for $3 is one, right? So there are 1,000 different ways to make money online. There are a bunch of people selling you courses
Mhm.
that are making more money selling the courses than they are drop shipping, right? So whatever you want to get into, I'm all for go make money online. Figure out a way to do it and figure out who to do it with. Right. And that's where, like, once again, I met Robbie Cornelius, who owns Web Asset Group, and his mastermind is $60 a month. It is the best investment I've ever made in my entire life. Just the amount of people that are doing great things in there, and the amount of knowledge that's inside of there to, with questions like this, hey, how do you set up your own store? How do you drop ship if you want to? How do you source? Right. But he's got all sorts of stuff on affiliate marketing there too. But he's been doing this make money online thing for the last 20 years before it was all the rage on YouTube. But that's also where, like, the find your people thing was where we started. What's up, Jordy? Sorry.
Thank you, Brianna, for the question. Appreciate it. Nick, can you talk? Let's just change gears a little. And last
Sure.
question, I want you to talk to the business owner, the CEO out there, and give your pitch to him or her on why military talent is the way for them to grow their business. What makes this community so special?
Sure, 100%. Right. So we've been through something. A bunch of us have been through something where it was high stress and lives might be lost, right? And we had to get through that, right? The majority of things in business are not life-threatening things, right? So whatever you're stressed out at work about, right? Whether that's strategy or whether it's, hey, we just lost this sale, or hey, this thing just blew up, right? A veteran can come in there, calm, cool, collected. What's the problem? How do we solve it? Right? That's step one. Number two, we're going to show up, and we're going to use whatever resources you put in front of us to solve that problem or get that thing done, right? Also, and then on the other side of that, just if you just give us the swim lane to stay in or the bumpers on the bowling alley and say, hey, this is the goal, go. But make sure that those bumpers are defined. Otherwise, you're going to have vets coming into your place that are doing cannonballs into other swim lanes, and we just don't know any better.
Yeah. That's good
Right?
stuff. Good stuff.
Was
Nick,
that pitch enough, Jordy?
that's great.
Work?
No, that's
Okay.
I can't thank you enough, buddy. We took a half hour of your time, and I appreciate this. Your advice is always spot on. And anyone out there listening, you won't find a better guy to connect with. He reach him on LinkedIn. You'll find him under Nick Mershon, and he'll be more than happy to help you and on your journey. But Nick, thank you for doing this today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
All right.
Thanks so much.